So I'm so excited to have Tony with us today to give you some tips. And I would like to start with him introducing himself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony Sayegh. 2 degrees from GW, undergrad in 1998 and my master's in public administration in 2000. And I am today the head of public affairs at Susquehanna International Group.
Terrific. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for your time. Let's start with a question about networking, everybody's favorite topic. What is the best networking advice you've received or perhaps want to pass on?
You know, at a very early stage in my career, which actually began as a student at GW, which is why I think the university gives such amazing opportunities, experiential learning opportunities, intern opportunities, because it gets you integrated into that workforce environment super early. So I had a boss on Capitol Hill who once said to me, the most valuable capital in the world is human capital. And from that point, I always made it a big effort to get to meet people, know people, and include them into my human capital bank. And even if it was not something at that moment, month or year, I potentially would need to discuss with them career-wise, they're always there. And we always socialize sometimes. Sometimes we just, we used to actually handwrite notes to each other and clip newspaper articles out that we thought were relevant and then put them in the mail and send them to each other. Just back then, we just started really emailing. So you just send a quick note every now and again, checking in. So it was building and maintaining that bank. And I could tell you throughout my entire career, from my days at GW, postgraduate, when the time I moved back to New York and beyond, my GW network and the network I built literally in my 6 years in Foggy Bottom sustained, I would say, for the most part, my most valuable people in my life who gave me the best opportunities. And by the way, vouched for you too. It's not always the job you're going to get with that person, but if that person keeps you in mind and has their own network, you're now leveraging their network because they have a credibility in you, an investment in you, and an appreciation for your talent. And then they will help get you more socialized to a broader network. So it's the network multiplier, I think, is the most important part of that.
Terrific. Excellent. Okay. What specific action did you take that significantly impacted any of your job searches?
So I think you have to kind of be unafraid and put yourself out there. And it really is almost against human nature because we're kind of taught to protect ourselves, protect our feelings, protect ourselves from rejection. And you got to embrace rejection. I mean, it's really a huge part of the game. And the quicker you're able to kind of just not fear it, the better off you're going to be, and you will put your best foot forward. And I actually remember getting fired from a job. I was super young, a little irresponsible, and I made a mistake. And it was something, I didn't necessarily understand at the time why it was such a big deal, but it was important enough. And I remember standing on the metro platform, and I could have either gone back to my dorm and just kind of wallowed at one of our local watering holes. But instead, I went back to the person who got me that opportunity, and I took accountability, apologized for whatever mistake was made. And believe it or not, that person found me very quickly another opportunity that summer that turned out to be even better. So you have to be unafraid. You have to never give up. And you got to believe in yourself. And part of that too is don't get in your own way. We could talk ourselves out of so many things. We could say, oh, I'm not qualified enough for that. That's too big a job for me. I'm not really sure. And that leads to kind of a lack of confidence. I think you need to just understand that, you will be valued, and as long as you value yourself, and you got to put yourself out there and really go after what you want. And I know it sounds almost so basic, but it's funny because, as I mentioned, we are taught and trained to constantly protect ourselves. But part of part of the best thing I've ever done in my career searches is I put myself out there, and I was unafraid. And it led to good things, and sometimes it led to rejection. But either way, I kept moving forward.
Excellent. Excellent. And you're right. We are definitely not taught to do that. That's a stretch for a lot of people, myself included. What have you found most helpful when you prepare for an interview?
It's funny. I had a friend / boss who used to jokingly say, if you are prepared, you don't have to get prepared. And then I would respond and say, but how you have to prepare yourself if you're prepared, right? Like, so it's not like preparation. You're just wake up one day and you're ready. That being said, I do believe they're in something that is counterproductive preparation, which means you're going in there and you think you're taking a standardized test and that there's right answers to every single question. And these are very objective answers, right? Like there, it's A or it's B or it's C or it's C. No, that's not what it is. Know enough about the organization, come up with some really smart questions. Don't forget, you're interviewing them as well. Now, granted, they have the leverage because they're the ones giving the opportunity, but there's a part of that they're going to appreciate somebody who part of their preparation is doing some research, doing some homework, having some curiosity, not focusing just strictly on the IQ side, but also the EQ side. Understand, you're selling yourself as a product, and in a lot of these jobs, everyone going after these jobs are pretty much equally qualified. I mean, every now and again, there's kind of someone who goes above the standard deviation, but like, you need to show who you are. You have to show some authenticity, some good characteristics about yourself that make the potential employer think to themselves, okay, I see this person on our team. This is how I see them interacting with the broader team. You're not an island in most of these jobs, right? So you're automatically being evaluated as part of a larger team. So, I would just say, as important as it is to credential yourself, like, be yourself. And that's a very important aspect of, I think, any successful interview.
That is really excellent. I love the idea that you should being prepared is being yourself and knowing yourself, not having to cram information about yourself in the day before you're going to go talk about yourself.
Exactly.
Sometimes our students have to feel comfortable talking about themselves, because that's another thing we're not really always taught to do. So maybe having conversations with people and being able to talk about themselves so that they kind of get used to doing that could be helpful.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think storytelling is such an essential part of certainly anything in the public affairs, public policy, media relations, government affairs space. A lot of this is really important and applicable to things you will do there. But the first story you have to tell is your own. And, part of telling your story isn't just reading your resume, it's bringing your resume to life. They see your resume. They understand what these jobs are. 9 times out of 10, they know exactly what you actually did under what role you described. So you have to bring that resume and make it kind of multidimensional. And part of that is telling your story. And without sounding too kind of, calculated about it, I mean, you have to offer a value proposition. Okay, you're hiring me because if you do, this is what you're going to get. This is the value to you, your organization, to your stakeholders, whoever it is. So you have to think of a way to be able to storytell and lead it to like the value prop that you offer the organization.
Terrific. Makes total sense. What specific action do you think that you've taken that's been very impactful on your general career advancement rather than a specific job?
That's really a great question. I guess it would be learning, constantly being curious and constantly learning and building relationships with my mentors. Always understand a mentor is a gift. At first you'll hopefully have some, and eventually you will become one, and understand that reciprocating that is even a better gift. And I certainly love doing it to so many of our kind of graduates from GW, people who kind of come to me through mutual friends or organizations I used to be a part of. I love to do it. I benefited from it. I mean, my career has been built on the backs of a lot of mentors and good mentoring. So it's super important to me. So initially I talked about building this network, but really part of that is using the network. So if there was one specific thing I've done that I think has been helpful, it's I've not just built it, I've used it, I've operationalized it. I mean, what good is the Maserati in your driveway if you're not going to drive it, right? You could build it up, you could polish it, you could take care of it, make sure all the mechanics work. But if you're not going to get into that seat and drive somewhere, it's not any fun, it's not going to be useful. So the bottom line, I think, is as much as you dedicate a lot of your early career and in an ongoing way building your network, you got to use it. You don't be afraid to use it. Understand that someone is going to use you one day, and not in a bad way, in a constructive way, as part of their network. And you should welcome that opportunity. And at the same time, understand that you're going to have opportunities to really be able to leverage all that great human capital you've built. Because if you're yourself, if you do the right job the right way, building the right reputation, I think it comes back to you in spades. And just to be clear, I do not have a Maserati. That was just a that was like, if you were going to kind of pick a glamorous, fabulous car and own one like that, you should probably drive it, is my point. Just, I wanted to make sure I was clear.
You
on
have the
that.
Maserati of networks.
The Maserati of networks, maybe. That's my Maserati for sure.
Well, thank you so much. You've given us some mentoring here today, and we really appreciate you joining us and giving us advice. I'm looking at your background thinking I might rather be where you are than where I am, so I'm a little bit jealous, but thank you for taking some time out. Really appreciate it, Tony.
I love the Trachtenberg School. Keep going. Thank you.